Is Joe Biden to blame for the current financial situation? The unfortunate comeback of significant rising prices has altered the political climate, with severe implications for Biden's program. The American people think that inflation is now the most critical concern affecting the economy in the nation and that President Biden is ignoring it. This answers why many Americans are unhappy with his market performance, jeopardizing his administration. Too many Americans are just too young to know the inflationary boom of the 1970s and early 1980s, which is why inflation's comeback has been so surprising. Many analysts are also caught off guard. Citizens' opinions. For a year after costs started to rise, they maintained that this stage of the overall economic growth would be transitional, until last week's declaration that the annual inflation rate had hit 7.5%. The announcement was the final nail in the coffin for this terrible term, confirming the predictions of dissident economists like Larry Summers and Jason Furman that inflation would remain. The Biden government maintained public confidence about inflation until recent events that made optimism unsustainable. According to a recent CBS poll, 58% of Americans believe Biden isn't focused enough on the financial system, with 65% saying the same about inflation. Only 33% believe Biden and the Democrats are concentrating on the issues that are most important to them. As per a CNN study, 7 out of 10 Americans believe the government is not doing anything to decrease inflation and supply chain disruptions. Because of this, it's unsurprising that only 38% of Americans think of the president's management of the economy and only 30% think of his management of inflation. According to a recent economist poll, inflation has surpassed other factors shaping voters' opinions on the economy. When asked to name the best way to measure the economy, 52% said the price of goods and services, compared with 17% for joblessness and jobs, and only 6% for the share market. Even though the Biden government wants Americans to concentrate on the fast creation of employment and a substantial decrease in unemployment, the public is more concerned with rising costs until inflation slows. A bipartisan infrastructure. Americans have begun to feel that presidents have significant authority over the economy since the New Deal, and they anticipate President Biden to act on inflation. Individuals have been motivated that unclogging the supply chain is a key part of the change due to the scarcity of commodities on supermarket shelves and waiting to obtain goods purchased online. Considering the administration's assurances, little progress has been made. The disparity between the pandemic workforce's broad exposure and the supply chain workforce's virtual absence has been striking, mainly because consumers are now more concerned about the increasing prices than dropping infection rates. People are coming to assumptions about the administration's intentions in the lack of a high-profile anti-inflation drive. As per a Politico poll, 46% of respondents believe that executing the Build Back Better program would raise inflation, while only 6% think it would lower inflation. President Biden has already approved a bipartisan infrastructure measure into law, and opinions on it are pretty similar. Morning Consult poll. According to a Morning Consult poll released in late October, 62% of voters say Biden's tactics are too responsible for price increases, including everything from poultry to petrol to flat leases. What's more, imagine what, they must. The current Consumer Price Index statistic has Biden's fingerprints on it, with prices climbing 0.9% in October relative to 0.2% in September. That was far more than the 0.6% average expectation. Inflation is already rising at about 12% if we analyse the price hike from October. Inflation climbed 6.2% in October, the largest increase in 30 years amid supply chain backlogs, the Washington Post reported, citing the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Is that clear? It all boils down to supply chain issues, a complicated confluence of events that Biden believes most Americans are too immature to realise and on which the White House has no influence. Biden White House's policy mistakes. Liberals are expecting that Americans would believe that story. Besides, not even Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg can be assumed to scatter the ships lined up off the coast of the Long Beach or locate limited lumber when it goes missing on its own. Those supply chain issues are undoubtedly still present. However, sourcing issues aren't the whole tale when the significant drivers of inflation are power, up 30% from last year, rising rents, and chronic workforce shortages. The Biden White House's policy mistakes have exacerbated an already serious crisis. Price of oil, for example, is rising for two purposes. First, even as the need has rebounded from the COVID-19 induced decline, US output has fallen by nearly 2 million gallons per day since 2019. Because oil markets are international, a drop in output would not automatically raise prices, but it would have to be countered by a rise elsewhere. Despite frequent pleadings from Biden, OPEC has not recovered output to the amount required to lower prices. Role of Biden. However, Biden has done quite a bit to deter a rebound in drilling and production in the United States. He has blocked pipelines, blackmailed oil and gas firms with increased taxes, removed promising areas from the game like the Arctic Natural Wildlife Refuge, slowed leasing and new drilling licenses, and recently implemented new methane curbing laws that increased drilling costs. With such continuous antagonism, what rational person would buy stock in the oil field? Drilling activity has increased, but it's still much below where it should have been at $82 per barrel of oil. Housing gave inflation a boost as well. Analysts have cautioned that fast rising housing prices would ultimately elevate higher inflation estimates, given that shelter accounts for roughly 40% of the CPI. This happened in October, with the price of shelter increasing by 0.5% from September for an annualized increase of 6%. Miscalculating pricing pressures. The Federal Reserve has decided to purchase $15 billion worth of mortgage-backed assets per month, artificially lowering mortgage rates, which is one because housing prices have been rising at roughly 20% per year. Consequently, the market has exploded, driving up property prices and, more recently, rents. The Federal Reserve has finally stated that it will start scaling back its bond buying program, including mortgage-backed assets. Critics believe the Fed has been behind the curve miscalculating pricing pressures. The term of Fed Chair Jerome Powell expires in February, and Biden has been interviewing Powell and Fed Governor Lael Brainerd, a noted Dove and Obama nominee for the role. The fact that he appears to be examining only these two individuals sends a strong message. Even if it means that the inflation keeps rising, he will pick development over stability. Build Back Better plan. Ultimately, Biden has advocated not only monetary excess, but also huge spending measures that have put some money in consumers' pockets while keeping employees off the job. The most pressing issue in this country these days is labour. The workforce participation rate is 61.6%, down 1.7% from February 2020. According to research, the CARES Act and subsequent relief bills provided Americans with up to $100,000 per year in incentives while they were not employed, including increased unemployment benefits, enlarged child tax credits, and rent moratoriums. These expenditures may have been required during the early stages of the comeback from the epidemic, but they are no longer needed. A recent report of Biden's planned Build Back Better bill might generate even more significant disincentives to labour, putting millions of Americans out of employment. Everything would become more expensive as a result of this. In the end, inflation is caused by too much money chasing too little things. That is precisely what is happening right now. Joe Biden is to fault for a large part of the issue, and Americans are well aware of this. Statements of Biden regarding inflation. Despite record high inflation and supply constraints caused mainly by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, President Joe Biden believes he does not think the US is headed for a recession. Biden admitted that the American economy has issues, but said it is best placed than other nations at a media briefing in Tokyo. "We have problems that the rest of the world has," Biden said, "but less consequential than the rest of the world has." Biden highlighted the hardships faced by American families as a result of severe supply constraints and high energy prices. He stated that his administration was attempting to alleviate the agony of American consumers, but that immediate remedies were doubtful. "This is going to be a haul," Biden said. "This is going to take some time." That's all there is for today. Leave a comment on whether or not it's right to blame Joe Biden for the current financial situation. Also, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Click the notification bell to never miss out on future ones. Stay tuned.